Hello guys and welcome to Odds on Premier League. Let's start the season in the British Premier League, of course, with all the teams by Tom Rennie. But I also want to know your opinion, so leave a comment below. And of course, if you enjoy our videos, press the like button, subscribe and click on the bell to get notifications. And now, let's go on with the show. So Premier League is back. We are happy, not because the summer is getting over, but at least we have good football ahead of us. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing great. Happy new season to you. Happy new season, everybody. It's going to be a good one. And keep that positivity even when your team lose on Saturday, Sunday, or whatever day they're playing.
It's been a very short rest, actually, for the players. For us, it was yesterday when we're talking about the last match day of the Premier League, but we are back, Tom. So let's start with a new team. Actually, we have a London derby, Brentford, Arsenal, and when last week we were reviewing a little bit the season, you told me that Brentford should struggle this season and that Arsenal, you are not very confident also that they can improve what they did last season. It's the second full season for Mikel Arteta, and they need to improve because last season they were far from the European spots. Ben White, not a big name, I guess, is their best signing, and they are very favorites for this game, 1.95. A rule that we had last season is don't trust Arsenal.
Yes, and that remains. That's my rule for the season. It may well be my rule for life. Never trust Arsenal. When you think they're going to get a result, they will not. When you back the opposition, they will win 4-0. They are a gambler's nightmare. Always have been, always will be. And I'll put this game coming up on Friday into that category as well. But before we get to the game, a quick look at the two squads going into the new season. And again, there's a lot still to be set. We're still a couple of weeks away from the transfer deadline. I expect more business from both. In terms of Arsenal, we'll start with them as our viewers will know them a little bit better. They haven't done a great deal of business as yet. Absolutely right to say that Ben White is not the most glamorous of signings, but I do think he's a very good player. I do think he will improve Arsenal. And so I think that you take away the transfer fee. I think if I could choose between Ben White in my team and David Luiz in my team, I'm going to go Ben White every day of the week at this point of their careers. He's a versatile player. He can play deep-lying midfield. I think he'll probably be better in deep-lying midfield moving forward, but he can play in a 4, he can play in a 3, he can play across the 3. I think he's a very, very good signing for Arsenal. There's other issues in there for Arsenal, absolutely. I think that Arteta was talking this week about there being problems in terms of who's going to score the goals for them. Aubameyang's got to step up. Lacazette seemingly wants to leave. They haven't found a buyer for him as yet. So there are issues in there for Arsenal they need fixing, and I'm not sure they've brought in the quality of player that they needed to make that step up to top 4, that step up to top 6, which of course they didn't make last season either. So I expect business to be done. Intrigued to see what Emile Smith-Rowe does in that number 10 role, wearing the number 10 shirt. I like him as a player. Going to be massively reliant on him. Intrigued to see what role Bukayo Saka plays this season, especially from the start, given his exploits during the summer. And they're going to rely on him as well to create chances. And so I think there are lots of questions to answer for Mikel Arteta, who's going to be under massive pressure after the first 10 games of this season, if they haven't been able to at least win half of those games. And I have massive doubts about them doing that. As for Brentford, we've waited a long time for this. They've waited a long time for this. They have a good squad of players. They have a Premier League squad of players. Big question marks there. The only one I would definitely say is of quality is Ivan Toney up front. Brian Mbeumo, who plays with him. One or two others, I think Rico Henry's a good player. But apart from that, it's a championship squad that played way above themselves and led by this brilliant striker, Ivan Toney, who was going to be in the Premier League, whatever happened this season. Such was his goal record in the championship. And I think he is going to be able to do it in the Premier League. I think he's got the quality to do it in the Premier League. So they've made a load of signings, maybe 8 or 9 signings at this point. It's hard for me at this point to assess them. I don't know who's a first-team signing. I don't know who's come in to make up the numbers. There's been plenty of departures as well. Lots of players released come the end of last season, as they've done something that all the promoted teams usually do and have had to do. Jettison those you don't think are going to make it and bring in some players you think that are. So we'll know more about them come week 3, week 4, week 5. That gives them, I think, a big advantage going into this game. Firstly, at home, at the Brentford Community Stadium. I don't think they've got a sponsor yet for it. Their new stadium, which was built for the start of last season, replaced Griffin Park, and they never had a full house. They've never had a full house in this stadium, to my knowledge at least, and this is something I missed. I'm pretty sure we've all been under the same restrictions, and they never had a full house for a home game. So this will be the first one at home against a near rival in Arsenal. I know a lot of Arsenal fans whose second team has been Brentford. A soft spot for them. A lot of Londoners do, because most of us thought they'd never make it this far. Now you've got to kind of relinquish that second team thing. So Brentford to win are like 4s, 5-1. That seems like good odds to me. You're not going to know Brentford inside out at this point. They've got a striker who can score goals. They're up against the notoriously flaky side in Arsenal. And Arsenal are like 1.5, that kind of area to win the game. Not seeing that. Not seeing 3-5 for Arsenal to win this. I'd be looking in this game, Ivan Toney to score and Brentford to win. There is money to be made here. Avoid Arsenal. There's a lot of signs that say this could be a shocking, exciting Brentford victory. And if you can double up Toney to score and Brentford to win, you get that for around 30s this morning. That's pretty decent.
Yep, Brentford to win, odds 4-3-6. Really good money to be made. Arsenal, they didn't win a single game in the pre-season. Then let's move on in Old Trafford. We have Man United Leeds. I'm also quite curious to see what is going to be the season for Leeds, because last season was amazing in their comeback to the Premier League. But also Bielsa is a great coach, don't get me wrong, but he's also a specialist to burn players like Antonio Conte, for instance, whereas Man United, I guess, Tom, they have to challenge this season for the title. Last season, they tried probably until mid-season, but with the addition of Sancho or Varane, I guess they should be title contenders this season.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right that this season, absolutely, I think it's fair to say that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer inherited a real mess at Manchester United, a squad that made no sense from different types of managers. I'm not sure it made sense what David Moyes was doing. It made no sense what Louis van Gaal was doing. Jose Mourinho had a flourish with Ibrahimovic and Pogba in that first season, but in general, it didn't make a great deal of sense. The football was awful. Where were they going? They brought in short-termist managers and they didn't get short-term results, really. They never challenged the Premier League title despite finishing second under Mourinho. We know all that story. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has come in and he's been given a lot of slack. And some people think he should have gone already. Others think he should get a 10-year contract to continue to build this project. I think the pudding is now. I think the pie has been baked. I think the ding has gone off. I think the pie is now sitting in grandmother's window on the windowsill and the apple is wafting across the garden. We are ready to taste the pie that has been cooking. Jadon Sancho is a tremendous signing. I think he's a tremendous signing. I think they also need Harry Kane or a centre forward to make Sancho work even better, as we saw with Erling Haaland at Borussia Dortmund. When he came in, Sancho looked better. Look, everyone looks better with a striker like that, but I think that's where Man United are lacking. Raphael Varane won't play this weekend. I shouldn't think, because there's still protracted elements of that deal that's being worked out this week, so I think he's probably not going to play, but I think that's a tremendous signing. Maguire, Varane, Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, probably Henderson. That makes a lot of sense to me. Make Scott McTominay your kind of Declan Rice pivot solo midfielder. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think Scott McTominay is fantastic. Needs to work on some of those defensive elements, but I think he'll get that reasonably quickly. There's good backup in Fred and Matic. And then the front lot, the talent is ludicrous. It really is ludicrous in those players behind the striker. It's the striker that's a problem. Cavani can't play more than 20 minutes. He shouldn't be starting games in the Premier League. You couldn't then play him in European football as well. The age, the legs, it's all obvious stuff. Are they going to make Mason Greenwood the second centre forward? They probably should. I don't see who else does it. Rashford not fit at the moment. He's not a centre forward. That experiment just needs to end. It's not going to happen. As for Leeds United, fantastic last season, as you alluded to. Brilliant campaign. Jack Harrison coming in on a permanent after 700 loans. I think is a really good signing. He makes a lot of sense in this team. He's technically good. He's fast. He's creative. I like Junior Firpo from Barcelona. I think that gives a proper good fullback compared to what they've had last season, was Dallas filling in, Ayling on one side, Firpo on the other. It makes sense to me. At least he's a fullback as opposed to having players filling in. I think then you get Stuart Dallas in midfield, where I think he's a lot better. You've got Click, you've got Phillips. Patrick Bamford's got to do it again, but there's no reason at this point to suspect that he won't. So everything is still there from last season, with some good signings during the summer to add to it. Nothing too flashy, but if they go into this team, Bielsa's okayed it. If Bielsa's okayed it, this guy is going to put the effort in for Leeds United. So I see it being that way. Interested to see what they do in the next couple of weeks, but obviously still having Rafinha, Rodrigo, so much talent in this squad to try and put together. This game on Saturday is so interesting. It's so interesting. Firstly, full Old Trafford. I'm going to say that for every game here, of course, but a full Old Trafford for Man United Leeds, one of the big rivalries of English football, one of the big rivalries. Yorkshire, Lancashire, it's a huge, huge rivalry. And they, at the start of the Premier League era, were the two challengers. The last ever Division 1 was won by Leeds United. The first ever Premier League was won by Manchester United. They had that Eric Cantona rivalry going on early 90s. It was such a cornerstone of my childhood. The Leeds-Man U rivalry, Howard Wilkinson against Sir Alex Ferguson. Alex Ferguson as he was. It goes back to the 80s and 70s and, of course, regionally as well. Last year, Leeds came into this league and they had that incredible game against Liverpool, that 4-3. It was a phenomenal game of football. Have Man United been able to end the issues they've had at home during this summer with fans coming back in? Massive question. Will they be able to take the lead in a game and see a game out? What does Paul Pogba do at this point during his career at Man United? Will he be selected? Who's fit enough to play for Man U? Who is ready and raring for Leeds to outrun, outwork, outmuscle Man U at a full Old Trafford? Massive game this. You can get Leeds for around 6-1. That's quite interesting to me. That's quite interesting. Would I recommend it to our viewers? No. I wouldn't recommend it. I think the draw is interesting at 4s and 5-1. I think that's interesting. Man U to win is not particularly interesting anywhere because they're going to be big favourites because they're Man U at home. If you're looking at interesting bets, I did pick out earlier today Harry Maguire to score, which you can get with a header for around 20-1 on some markets. To score, he's around 12-13-1. Leeds are useless at defending corners. Harry Maguire has a massive forehead. That's just putting 2 and 2 together. So I'd be looking here for the draw, and I'd be looking somewhere for Maguire to score.
Okay, last season was a 6-2, by the way, for Man United at Old Trafford. Then we go to a less interesting game for sure. In Turf Moor, Burnley, Brighton, two teams that, I was going to say struggled to stay in the Premier League, but the bottom three were that bad that actually they didn't have many trouble. And Brighton, they are supposed to be a better team. Tom, the odds are lower for them. They are favorites for this game because even Burnley, they struggled a lot last season at Turf Moor, once upon a time, fortress. Not last season. Let's see how they start the season with a direct rival like Brighton.
Yeah, Leicester preview on this one, really, for obvious reasons. There hasn't been a great deal of change in either squad. Burnley have signed no one particularly significant. Few players let go, but no one that they're going to miss a great deal. Burnley's squad does not change. The personnel doesn't change a great deal. Some doubts about Chris Wood's fitness, Ashley Barnes' fitness, not just for this weekend, but also across the season. They rarely get more than 30 games out of that pair. If they do, they'll stay in the Premier League. If they don't, then they won't. As for Brighton, I suppose the big story, they sold Ben White. I think they can cover that because they still have Lewis Duncan, Adam Webster, and good players. But they still, as I speak to you, have Yves Bissouma, which we didn't think was going to be the case come the start of this new season. Keeping him is a massive, massive thing. So you can see why the odds for this one are very, very close. I would be looking for all markets here that are low scoring. 0-0 is around 8-1, 9-1. I'd certainly be looking at that market. I'd be looking at either team to win by a 1-goal scoreline. Burnley to win 1-0. Burnley to win under 1.5 goals, around 8-1. That looks interesting to me.
Okay, we have also under 2 goals, for instance, for this game. The odds are 2.10, another interesting one. Always low scoring one. Then we go to another London derby. Interesting to see the new Chelsea after being European champions. They beat Villarreal in the penalty shootout. Also, of course, European champions after beating Man City. They haven't bought a lot of players this summer because they bought everything in the previous one. So I guess they don't need anything else. But it's also interesting to see the first full season, of course, of Thomas Tuchel on the bench of Chelsea. Whereas Crystal Palace, you mentioned last week, Tom, that they are going to struggle a lot this season to keep the category.
Yeah, let's start with Chelsea as the home team. Lukaku's coming in, as we know. He's not signed as yet. He's not going to be able to play this weekend, but he will be here for next week. That will be the big signing. But as we go into this week, as you say rightly, there are no signings of note worth talking about. Bettinelli's come in as, fourth choice keeper or something. It's not really worth our time mentioning that. But I've done it because, details. With Chelsea, I think that the squad is an embarrassment of riches. They have added so well over recent years. Everyone looks like they're going to be fit. Well, I think Ziyech got injured, in fact, on Wednesday. But apart from that, the squad is pretty much full. Kepa is your sub-keeper. People have their doubts about him, but as sub-keepers go, it's not too bad. Offensively, Kai Havertz is coming into his own. I'm still not on the Kai Havertz hype train, but I certainly think he's improved over his 1 year already in the Premier League. And if scoring the winning goal in the Champions League final doesn't improve your confidence, then I simply don't know what will. Ziyech might be missing, but Pulisic can come in. Mason Mount is going to be fit for the start of the season following his England exploits, and I think he's a tremendous player. Jorginho and Conte make a lot of sense together. Reece James, Azpilicueta, the strength is there. I think they are a Lukaku short, and he is coming in. I don't think that'll affect them for this weekend. As for Crystal Palace, the Vieira story is going to be such a big one this season. I think it's going to take a lot for him to still be in charge of Crystal Palace come January. He has to have a good start. I don't think it will be accepted they muddle along like they have done under Roy Hodgson. I think they made a bold decision to get rid of someone like Roy Hodgson and to replace him with someone who's had a moderately middling to unsuccessful managerial career to this point in Patrick Vieira, who's come in. Joachim Andersen from Lyon, who played for Fulham last season, I think is a very good signing at centre-half. He replaces Gary Cahill and Mamadou Sakho, perennially injured veterans who had to go. That's a good signing. Michael Olise from Reading is a very good signing. Of course, untested because he comes up from one division to this, but he looks like he's going to be a good player. Apart from that, not a great deal of improvement of the first team. Benteke signed a new contract, bafflingly. And there's still, I think, more players that need to be brought in just to fulfill a squad. So many left. The outs at Palace, we haven't got time to list them all. There's so many that have gone. First team players as well. McCarthy, Cahill, Van Aanholt, Sakho, Townsend. A lot of good players have left. So I think they will struggle this season, and I think they will struggle in this game. Tough to say how they're going to play because, again, I have not seen a Vieira team in great detail. I get my Vieira information from journos that have worked in Liga and MLS, and they've all gone, not great. So I'm intrigued to see it. I don't think we learn a lot here. I think Crystal Palace go to defend, go to get something, go to get a point. I don't think they do. It's all Chelsea wins in various scenarios here for me. I think they win without conceding a goal. I think they win by 2 goals or more. I think that you'd certainly be looking at a combined market as well. Very few players, I think, are guaranteed to start for Chelsea. There's only 2. It's Kai Havertz and Mason Mount. So I'd be looking at doubling up scores and one of those guys scoring. But Chelsea win without conceding, 2-0, 3-0, that sort of thing.
Okay, Chelsea to win 2-0. The odds are 1.9 right now. And yes, I forgot that they bought Lukaku and Giroud. Your favorite player is gone, by the way.
Very sad.
Then let's go to Goodison Park, Everton, Southampton, another interesting team. Everton, because they have Rafa Benitez to replace Ancelotti, and the challenge, I guess, is easier, no? It's improve what Ancelotti did last season, because Everton started so well the season, and then again, they went down, whereas Southampton, another team that can struggle a lot this season. For this game, actually, the odds for a home victory for Everton are quite good, but last season they struggled a lot at home.
Yeah. Carlo Ancelotti was a massive failure at Everton. There's no other way to slice it. A good run he might have had, but the man failed. He brought nothing, he offered nothing, he improved nothing, and he left him in the lurch. So he is not going to be well remembered or well respected for his time at Everton. You might say Real Madrid only comes around once in a lifetime. He came around twice in a lifetime. He's already done it. He promised Everton the world and he left them with nothing. Rafa Benitez comes in. It's a very bold move. Some fans didn't want it to happen. The more irrational fans were putting up horrid banners and stuff around the city. But this makes a lot of sense. This is the best possible manager, for me, Everton could have got. I actually think they don't deserve to have a boss like Rafa Benitez and his experience. Everton are now at the we need to start again. What are we doing with ourselves? Look in the mirror stage of their development. They've thrown a lot of money at this team for what reward? Not much. Not much, really. We haven't seen a great deal of them. And their form at the back end of last season, the way they tailed away, was absolutely woeful. Who have they signed? They've basically had a great transfer window if this was 2016. Andros Townsend, yesterday's man. Asmir Begovic, I thought he'd retired. And Damari Gray, who left Leicester, went to Leverkusen, didn't really impress at Leverkusen, has now come back to the Premier League. So no massive improvement. They've got the James Rodriguez question, who has still got a contract at Everton, but he's not really going to play for them. Nobody wants him. He's basically finished as a top-level player. He didn't have the physical attributes to play in the Premier League. You know, that's a cliche a lot of the time, but I would say any top league, I don't think he's got the physical attributes to play in. I think he's a bit part player, last 20 minutes for a great team, you know, a Champions League team playing the last 20. He might be able to cut it. Playing 90 minutes for somebody, it's just not going to happen. He's going the way of Mario Götze, I think. James Rodriguez, he'll be binned off to Fenerbahce at some point, and he'll get 20 minutes here and there. So I have big doubts about Everton. We don't know if Calvert-Lewin's going to be fully fit for this weekend as well. That makes a massive difference. We know Rafa likes a big man up top, and Calvert-Lewin is actually a target man they will aim for. For Southampton, oh dear. Oh dear is how I would describe Southampton. To lose Danny Ings, huge blow. That is such a monumentally huge blow. They've replaced him with Adam Armstrong, who has scored goals regularly for Blackburn in the Championship. He's a player that a lot of Premier League teams have had their eye on a bit, but look, he's not Danny Ings. Maybe he'll step up. Maybe he'll get that magic touch. Players do improve. You know, it does happen, but it won't happen on week one, that's for sure, and I think they need it to. Southampton are going to struggle all season long. Yannick Vestergaard, it's not confirmed as we speak, but it's going to be confirmed he's going to have gone to Leicester City shortly. That's another big blow. Bednarek and Vestergaard were huge in terms of Southampton's, quite literally huge as well. But in terms of how good they were defensively at times last season, to lose them is a massive blow. So I think they're going to struggle all season. The squad doesn't look good enough. A lot of unrest there. Not a great deal of investment. Across the season, Southampton bottom 5. Everton maybe 10th if things go well. In this game, I can see why Everton are favourites to win it. I don't really see a scenario where Southampton get anything. So I'd be looking at a narrow Everton victory, under 1.5, Everton win.
Okay, Everton to win. Then a team that I like a lot, Leicester City against Wolverhampton. Leicester City, again, they lost the possibility last season at the end to finish at the top 4, but their reward was, of course, touching silverware with the FA Cup. Also, they won the Community Shield last week, whereas Wolverhampton, they lost Nuno Espírito Santo. They bought Bruno Lage. They took Bruno Lage, another Portuguese, probably as boring as Nuno Espírito Santo. Here, Leicester City, again, favorite, 1.74. What do you expect about Brendan Rodgers' men in this season?
I think Patson Daka is a very good signing from RB Salzburg. I think he'll cut it in the Premier League and can play in a variety of positions. Good pace. Looks like he's going to be a clinical striker at some point during his career as well. I think he'll develop that kind of Henry switch of winger to centre forward at some point, which I think is something that they want from someone like him. Jamie Vardy, 34, 35 in January. They're asking him to do it again. I think he can do it again. I don't have any major doubts about Jamie Vardy. His form tailed off massively at the back end of last season, but I don't think that was age. I think he just went off form, and I expect him to recover it. Iheanacho stepped up. I think he'll step back to the bench, kind of his position, really. Iheanacho, Premier League substitute, and so I think that'll happen again. Defensively, big issues, Leicester, after that challenge on Wesley Fofana in the Villarreal pre-season, broke his leg, so he's going to be out till next year. Vestergaard's coming in. I don't think Vestergaard is the same quality As for Fana, issues with Johnny Evans as well, which means they go into the new season with essentially Soyuncu and Vestergaard as their defensive pairing. I would be looking any ball over the top against that too. I think Leicester could be in big trouble. Ryan Bertrand, he looks like he's 55. I'm not sure that's a great signing despite his experience. He's been disinterested at Southampton for a while. I think most people would agree with that assessment. But good cover at fullback for them at least. But I think that Ricardo and Luke Thomas look a better bet at fullback than he does for me, but we will see. So look, I think they haven't improved a great deal from last season. I think they'll continue to be as good as last season. The question marks are about James Maddison. Is he going to step up now, James Maddison? Is he going to do a Jack Grealish at this point in his career? 4 or 5 years ago when they were both in the Championship, maybe 2-3 years ago actually, all of us sports journalists were going, who's going to make the grade? Who is going to be the guy who makes the Premier League move? James Maddison or Jack Grealish? Grealish came up with Villa. Maddison made the move, Norwich to Leicester. Grealish has gone to another level, and he was so brilliant for Villa last season. He's now the most expensive player in British football history. James Maddison has kind of disappeared. He's disappeared into the ether. He's been injured. What does he offer? Flits in and out of games. Is he physically strong enough to play in the Premier League? Lots of question marks. If Leicester have a good season, James Maddison has a good season. If they don't do that, then I think it could be a bit of a slip down the table for them, considering the lack of improvement they have made elsewhere. As for Wolves, firstly, a real disappointment when I found out it's not Bruno Lage. I was looking forward to that. Could have made a good pun out of that all season, but Lage, can't make it work. Lage, go for a Lage. Lager's all round. Could have made that work as a pun, but we can't now because that's not how you say it. I know, it's disappointing. So we can't use that. In terms of how they play, really interesting this game and how they'll be. I'm really looking forward to assessing them. They brought in a lot of players who I do not know a great deal about. I don't think many people will know a great deal about the players they have brought in. The big question mark from last season to this will be, can Raul Jimenez play? He scored in pre-season against Stoke a couple of weeks ago, wearing his kind of Petr Cech skull protector. If he can come back into this team and be the 15 to 20 goal striker he was before, I think they have a real chance. I think that they need to be less defensive and less cautious as they were under Nuno. And I think they will be from everything I hear about their new manager and the new way they've been setting up during pre-season. But at the moment, I haven't seen enough of them to assess how they're going to be. In this particular game, I think it's going to be a back to the wall job because Leicester are going to have the wind in their sails. Community Shield won. Everyone offensively you'd like to see fit is fit. So I'd be looking at Leicester win. They go into it big favourites. Wolves were around 7-1 to win this game early this morning. They might have come in a bit since then, but they were around 7s on some of the websites I was looking at. You'd be looking at Leicester win. I'd be looking at comfortable Leicester win as well, to be honest. Minimum 2-0 for Leicester City.
Leicester to win in Oddspedia.com is 1.74. Well, we are hearing your tips, and also, guys, you can leave a comment and tell us, of course, what you think about the games. If you are looking for a 2-0 victory, for instance, Asian handicap minus 1.5 for Leicester, give us odds 3.05. So it's very good odds if the Foxes win comfortably. And you were talking about Grealish. Let's talk about Watford, Aston Villa. Premier League football comes back to Vicarage Road, and Aston Villa, as you mentioned, they lost Grealish, but they bought a good bunch of good players, including Danny Ings. Whereas Watford, they have an awful pre-season, actually. Let's see what they can do in this Premier League, but the odds are quite tempting, quite interesting for Aston Villa to win away this game 2.35.
Yeah, let's start with Watford. I think that they are the team that seem best set up to me to stay in the Premier League of the newly promoted teams. I think that the way they played last season, the way they navigated last season, I think they were, despite the chaos as there ever is at Watford in terms of sacking a manager and bringing someone in and always threatening him with the sack every other week, I think squad-wise, they have the most Premier League-looking squad. Plenty of players that were there during their last Premier League run remain at Watford right now. And I think there's a few players like João Pedro last season who I thought was fantastic when I watched Watford in the Championship. And I think he could definitely make a step up into the Premier League to be that creative force leading that Watford attack. So there's some good things about Watford. The trouble is, on top of that, is that this is Watford and they've already made like 15 signings. So it's difficult to assess. I've tried to watch some of their pre-season. It hasn't gone particularly great. Never read too much into pre-season results. Performances, I hear, haven't been particularly good. I think Josh King is interesting. I think he's a guy that went to Everton and got underused by Carlo Ancelotti because Everton didn't really want him. He's got a lot to prove, and I still think is Premier League quality. Only 2 years ago, he was on his way to Man United in that transfer window, maybe 18 months ago. So I think there's potential there. People like Ashley Fletcher have failed in the Premier League a couple of times over, but I do think he has got good potential. So some of the new signings interest me. But I think they've kept so much of that core squad together, 5-6 players. Ismail Assar is still there, who is very talented, very skillful, very quick. I think if he finds a way to utilise his height as well in the Premier League, he's not much of a header of the ball. I think they could develop that. I think he could be a real threat. So Watford look like they are in good shape. As for Aston Villa, losing Grealish is an insurmountable issue for them. Like, he was so important, so good. I watched the game between Villa and West Ham last season. West Ham put 3 players on Jack Grealish and went on to win the game. They put Soufal, Fredericks and Declan Rice. Just watch Grealish. You shut Grealish, you shut Villa. That's now over. He's gone to City. What do? Buendia is a good signing. Always like Buendia. I think he was very good when he was with Norwich in the Premier League last time. I think he went a bit moody by the end and kind of lost focus as they were obviously going down. It made him clearly depressed, and he struggled through it. Bounced back in the Championship. He was in the Championship last year, I think because of how moody he was during that Project Restart Premier League run. Danny Ings, sensational signing. If you can get 30 games from Danny Ings, you get 15 goals. You get 38 games from Danny Ings, you're pushing 21, 22, and that could be really considerable numbers come the end of this season. That's a difference between 12th and 6th. And that's what they will hope his goals can bring. Added to Watkins, could be very dangerous. Leon Bailey is interesting. Looked fantastic 3-4 years ago. Gone off the boil a bit, but I think that he's got incredible potential, and they're still adding now. So I think Villa look like they could be a decent team. It's what these players do when they can't look up and see Jack Grealish. For this game, I'd be too bold to back Watford to win. Home win, home crowd, newly promoted, it all, in my Brentford tip earlier, that's what I've gone for. For Watford, I don't think there'll be the hysteria of being back in the Premier League, because I think they consider themselves quite rightly to be a Premier League club. They're kind of back where they should be. And I would tend to agree with that with Watford. I think Villa will go there and dominate the ball. I think it's a big question as to whether Danny Ings can hit the ground running with Aston Villa. My answer to you today is yes, yes, yes. Villa to win, Ings to score, maybe both teams to score. I think this will be maybe the most entertaining game of this weekend. I'd expect Villa to open the scoring, I expect Villa to end the scoring, and I expect Danny Ings to be one of the scorers.
Okay, then Aston Villa to win at the Vicarage Road, another newly promoted team, Norwich. They are playing against Liverpool. I guess we all expect way more from Liverpool as what they showed last season. At the end, they could qualify for the top 4. Do you think, Tom, Liverpool is going to win first this game? The odds are very low, 1.33. And then can they fight for the title this season?
Yes, Liverpool win this game. And yes, Liverpool fight for the title this season. Again, it comes down to how fit they can keep their small nucleus. But I think that the focus will be firmly on trying to win the Premier League this season from this Liverpool team, and they won't be distracted by the Champions League or any cup competitions. This is the one they want to win. They want to get back in that title race, because last year they were embarrassing. They were embarrassing champions. I'm sorry to say they were never in a title race. They scraped into the Champions League. The continual moaning about Van Dijk after his injury was pathetic, really, in the end, and their attempts to replace him during the January transfer window with Ozan Kabak and that guy from Preston who, I'm not even going to bother to look his name up because I'll never need to learn it. It was a waste of time what they did last season. Plus all the talk of infighting and upset. I think there were serious issues there, but that I think will be wiped away with the summer, the clean break for a lot of these players. And I think Konate is a smart signing. I think they actually have a proper centre half now that when Van Dijk is missing, he can perform that role. When Van Dijk is back, Konate and Van Dijk is a very strong, muscular, physical, central defensive pairing who also read the game really, really well. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Good pass with the ball, Konate, as well, from what I've seen of him at RB Leipzig as well. If Gomez comes back and Matic comes back, they've got the centre-halves, they've got the full-backs. I know Roberts is injured right now, but they've got good cover there. And offensively, they still have that magic trio, Firmino, Salah, Mane. They can do it. Briefly on Norwich, I expect them to go down bottom. I expect them to get 25 points. I expect them at times to play some good football and have a couple of decent wins, but they've got no interest in staying in the Premier League. Never have, never will. They're looking forward to some more Premier League money back in the Championship, which they'll win in 18 months' time. I think Billy Gilmour is a good signing. They've had Alex Tettey for a long, long time. He's now retired. And so I think that's a big step up in terms of midfield quality, though. Do we know if Billy Gilmour can do it for a full season? We don't. We're going to find out. Josh Sargent, that'll get them some shirts sold in America. He looks like he needs to hit the gym if he wants to be a Premier League striker. And last time Teemu Pukki came up, he showed that he's the best striker in the Championship, nowhere near Premier League quality. For this game, Liverpool win. For this game, Liverpool win without conceding. The interesting market here is Mo Salah. How many goals will Mo Salah score in this game? Last season, scored a hat-trick on the opening day, as we discussed earlier, against Leeds. He's got a good record of scoring on the opening day of the Premier League season. If you want to make some money here, it's the Mo Salah market. 1 for Salah, 2 for Salah, 3 for Salah. Salah hat-trick this morning was around about 18-1. That, to me, is a tastier bet than any scoreline I can find.
Wow, that's a lot. And actually, what you mentioned also Liverpool to win 2-0, 2.4, not bad at all. Then on Monday, Newcastle, West Ham. West Ham, they are playing this season in Europe because last season was great, as you well know. Tom, and Newcastle, they had I don't know what to say about their last season, but probably was not the best. They didn't suffer a lot at the end to stay in the Premier League, but I guess Newcastle want a little bit more this season, and West Ham, they will be way more than happy if they can do exactly the same as they did last season.
I think these are the two teams that have done less business than I would have expected in the transfer window to this point. They both had squads that had clear deficiencies, and they haven't addressed them. For Newcastle, no first-team signings have come in to this point that are going to affect the first team. They made a couple of signings who might hang around the fringes of the squad. They've not been able to bring Joe Willock in as we speak. There's an issue of how much they're going to pay Joe Willock, who made such a big difference to them come the back end of last season. So Newcastle, as you were, and as they were, was awful. So I expect it to be broadly similar to that. If Alan Saint-Maximin and Callum Wilson are fit for enough of this season, without further additions, they will stay in the Premier League and they'll have some good moments. We know that both get injured for long swathes of the campaign. I expect that to happen again, though both, I hear, are fit for this weekend. And last year when they played in this fixture, Saint-Maximin ripped West Ham apart. So I think there's a variable in my forthcoming prediction for this game, and that is Saint-Maximin going to be fit enough to do the same again to West Ham? As for West Ham, losing Jesse Lingard is a big blow. I actually still think Lingard will sign for West Ham before the end of the transfer window, because I think Jesse Lingard has surely got to realise what's going on at Man United. Last year he wasn't going to get on the bench, and now they've bought Jadon Sancho. It isn't going to happen for you, Jesse. Man U is not going to happen. They're not that into you. So I think he will probably end up back at West Ham come the end of this window. He's not there right now. West Ham have also lost Balbuena, who played plenty of football last year, despite being third or fourth choice centre-half. They haven't replaced him either. So there's some red flags there with West Ham. I think they will do some business. They need to do some business, certainly if they're going to be trying to get out of their Europa League group as well. But at the moment, they look massively undercooked for me. And we know Mikel Antonio will get injured. He will miss at least 10 games in the Premier League this season. They sold Seb Allaire last January, got 30 million for him or so, and have not reinvested in their squad. You don't invest, you fall down the table. So I don't think either are going to have great seasons. I think Newcastle and West Ham will slide a few places from last, but I don't think either will get relegated. To this game, I think that a pack St James's Park may well make a big difference either way. If West Ham score early, I expect West Ham to go on to win comfortably. If Newcastle score early, I wonder whether West Ham are going to have the firepower to be able to get back in this game. So first goal for me, absolutely crucial. If I'm looking at results for this game, I think West Ham go into it slight favourites. 3s for Newcastle, 2s for West Ham. I would nudge towards West Ham. Because on the strength of last season's performances, I think West Ham have a better squad. I think they have a better foundation of a first team. And they have lost Lingard, but I've watched West Ham a few times in pre-season, and I think Said Benrahma looks like he is going to have a very big season indeed. So, Go West Ham, go low scoring.
I was checking the Oddspedia website, and actually the last 5 games between these two teams, Newcastle won 4. So let's see what happens. And the last game is the most interesting one, probably Tottenham Man City, because the champions, they are back. They are huge favorites again to win the title. They have Grealish, they have a lot of money. Let's say what they buy until the end of the transfer window. Whereas the Spurs, I guess, is a huge question mark, Tom, because we still don't know if Harry Kane is going to stay, and because they have a new coach, Nuno Espiritu Santo. They did this strange deal, in my opinion, with Sevilla, signing Brian Hill and leaving Lamela. What do you expect about this game, these two teams this season?
What do I expect? I mean, these two, probably the toughest to predict, because, I mean, let's start with Tottenham Hotspur. What is going on? What is happening? I just don't know what's going on at that club. Is Harry Kane going to play this weekend? Nuno said this week that he expects to have a full squad available to him. In the same press conference, he said he's not spoken to Harry Kane. Harry Kane was in self-isolation a week after he should have got back to training. Last we heard of him. So is Harry Kane going to go from the beach in the Caribbean to playing up front for Tottenham Hotspur without a training session? Maybe he is. Who else is going to play? There's not a great deal of options there for them. Not a big fan of who they've brought in so far, Tottenham Hotspur. I think that maybe Romero might make a big difference in terms of improving that defence. He might. I haven't seen a great deal of him, to be honest. But I do know that me or a plank of wood in a white shirt is better than Davinson Sanchez. So I think that may well be a good improvement for them. But they've lost Alderweireld. Last year they lost Vertonghen. I think in centre defence they've got big issues. With no Kane. Up front they've got big issues. And I just don't know how they play now. You know, the big myth of Nuno Espirito Santo at Wolves, that they play good football. They didn't play good football. Nuno is a very negative coach. He's a very cautious coach. He's a man that wants to draw the opposition on and hit them on the break. Almost like his old manager, Jose Mourinho. That's how they played. And that's how it didn't work for Tottenham. So is he going to do that again? But he's going to do it again without Kane? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't expect much from Tottenham this season. I don't expect much from Tottenham in this game. However, if Kane is brought back into the family, I can see a top 8 finish, maybe a top 6 push, but nowhere near the top 4 for them. And I'm intrigued to see what Dele Alli does as well, because Dele Alli was harshly bombed out by the previous manager. He's been playing in pre-season, and he used to be fantastic. We forget how good he once was, Dele Alli. It's been a few years now, but if they can rejuvenate him, I think they could have a good season with Dele Alli, Harry Kane, and Heung-min Son as a front three. As for Man City, embarrassment of riches, Grealish coming in. My only doubts at the moment about them are who's going to be available to them. And that is not something any of us can answer at this point, having seen that joke of a Community Shield performance. You know, they brought on a player who was number 96, who I'd literally never heard of in that game. They couldn't care less about the Community Shield and went on to lose it in the end. How many are going to be back? How many are going to be fit? Who is going to be able to play up front, if anybody? Is it going to be a false 9? And if they do play the false 9, it's not Kevin De Bruyne, who's injured again. So, in terms of the season, without getting 30 to 35 games out of Kevin De Bruyne, they don't get above 95 points. That opens it up to someone else to have a great season to get above them. I think the title will be won this year by someone who gets 90-92. Last year, they got 86. And I think Chelsea with Lukaku could get to that number. I think Man U should get to that number, and City should as well. But there will be drop points. Maybe in a game like this, if Harry Kane is playing and City aren't quite back at their best, full complement, and there's no De Bruyne. But we'll do this all season, hopefully. And there won't be one time where I'll bet against Man City. I guarantee you that right now. I ain't going to do it. I'm never going to do it, especially in the situation we are in. So look for City. Look to City to win, but I would urge caution on this game because there are so many variables.
Then City to win odds are 1.6. Thanks, Tom. We have all 10 games. You did a very deep analysis of all the teams and all the games. Let's finish off with your ACCA for the weekend.
Man City win, as discussed. I think they'll win at Tottenham. Chelsea will win their home game against Crystal Palace. Liverpool beat Norwich every day of the week and twice on Sunday. To add some spice, West Ham to beat Newcastle. Closer game, West Ham slight favourites, but that'll make it more interesting.
All right, odds are 5.72 for your ACCA. Thanks, Tom, and see you next week.
See you next week.
So now we have all the tips to bet in this first match day of the Premier League. Here now you can see all the tips that Tom gave us. Let me know what you think. Remember, in the comment section, and of course press the like button if you enjoy our video, subscribe and click on the bell to get notifications. Also, we have a podcast for you. See you next week. Enjoy the Premier League.